Over to you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Is the mic working and everyone can see the captions? Excellent. Well, thank you all and congratulations on these fabulous films. I know for me as a person who has hearing loss, it's so inspirational and really just affirming to watch movies like this where you see that people with hearing loss do have challenges, but they're also thriving and they're succeeding. And so that always makes me feel so good. And I think it's such a wonderful message for everyone here in the audience to take away. So thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. I know there's a lot going on today. You could have gone to the Yankees game or watch Caitlin Clark, but you're here, so thank you.
Get ready for the eclipse tomorrow, lots of things going on. But Jodi, I wanted to start with you as a fellow writer, and I'll ask a couple of questions, and then I'm hoping that people in the audience will have some questions as well. But as a writer, what inspired you? Talk about sort of the inspiration behind this story.
First of all, I'm so excited to meet you finally. I've been following her for a long time. Well, aside from the fact that my father was the driving force behind this novel because he sent me, once upon a time, a short story about him being hit by a baseball bat, and I read it, and I thought, wow, Dad, that's really cute. It could actually become a book. And so from the moment that I said that, my father, the only thing he would say to me was, write the book. So my son, I had moved to Italy in the meantime, and he was diagnosed with profound hearing loss, bilateral sensorineural hearing loss, and I was struggling a bit with my son and trying to teach him how to speak Italian because he was diagnosed in Italy, and they told me I couldn't speak English to him. So I'm raising my son to learn to listen and speak. He was immediately fitted with hearing aids. And every time I would talk to my father, he would say, how's Jordan? When are you writing the book? So my son, when he was 8 years old, he was no longer gaining a benefit from his hearing aids. So we looked into a cochlear implant. And he received his cochlear implant when he was 8 years old in Pisa. And I saw my son suddenly have access to spontaneous language. It was much more effective than his hearing aid. And when my father said, write the book, I decided that it was time to write a character into the book who could hear with his cochlear implant and who could speak because there had never been a child who was deaf who was able to speak in literature with a cochlear implant. And I wanted my son to be represented in literature. So that was the motivation behind creating that character in the book. And as persistent as my father was in the book becoming a book, that's how persistent he was in it becoming a movie. And that's when we met Lee.
So Lee, maybe talk a little bit about how the book turned into a movie.
Yeah, that's a long story, and I'll be out in the lobby if you want to hear the full version.
Short version.
Yeah, and get comfortable for that one. So I'll just kind of, frame the answer around what attracted me to the book. Look, I grew up watching The Sandlot. My dad he's here today, he took me to The Sandlot 20 years ago. 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And growing up on the Disney films of that era, Rookie of the Year, all of that. Look, there's not a proliferation of those kind of films right now. So I've always wanted to make something around that, sort of in that ballpark, if you will. And her father reached out to me many years ago when the book came out, and that's a whole deep story. But he stayed persistent with me and wanted to make it over the course of 15 years. So it's been a long journey. But I think what attracted me to the book to start with, right, because there's always a translation from the book to, the visual medium. And I think we had to deepen some of the themes to make it viable for a wider audience. But the first thing that attracted me was the relationship between Jodi and Lucas. It's at the cover of the book. It's the central relationship in the book. I want to say that it's still the central relationship in the film. I feel like it's the heart and soul of the film is that relationship.
No, I agree. And Amy, sort of as the producer, how did you get it done?
Well, it was a large group of people that got it done.
Forgive me, it was an emotional screening with my mother here, and my
Hi,
mother,
Mom.
Joelle, over there, and another producer there, Rob. I love the sensitivity of the boy and the vulnerability of young boys. I had 4 brothers, and I love sports, and my niece was a friend of Lee, and Lee mentioned he was writing the script, and I loved the script, and I just loved the camaraderie of the children, who were amazing, by the way. I want to just shout out to how beautiful they are. Every time I see it, I'm so blown away by the kids.
We
We
got
have a
members
lot
from
of-
the cast here, by the way.
Can everybody stand
got, like-
who's in the cast? Can the
Just a
kids
quick,
stand? And we
shout
also
out.
have Rob is here.
Rob.
You guys are amazing.
I just read a story and I visualized it. We talked and he just told me what he loved and what we really were in a threshold together, Lee and I, thinking about who would be perfect for these. And, you know, we just sort of came up with the cast, and it was a blessing to be able to bring on Judd and Amy, which was quite an effort, but it was wonderful. They loved the project, and, you know, that was it. We just sort of put it together. It wasn't easy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you carried it through. It's definitely worth it. Now, Peter, I don't want to forget about Deaf Giants. So talk about your inspiration for that. How did you come to that story and turn it into a film?
Well, I'm the filmmaker, but I'm also the father. Those are my 2 sons, Bracken and Bennett there, and so. And it's something that you know, Bennett is deaf, and that's a big part of our family. But you know, I have you know, another son here who has very different, who has an interest in baseball, and I love this idea of finding this thing that could bring them together, could bring us all together. This exploration of baseball history, but also deaf history, and realize, you know, my son who's deaf isn't just off on his own with his own sort of history that's totally separate. It's something that we can all do together and share in that kind of learning about the things that bring us together and the common history that we have.
Oh, that's terrific. And I can see, even just in the film, the love that your sons have for one another, and that comes through loud and clear, and I'm sure they're going to be great supports to each other as they grow up.
I have a quick question for you. Has your son narrowed down his choice of major league teams? There was like a handful. Just since you filmed it, as there.
You know, I am not. I daren't say, because I'm from Boston originally, so I think the Red Sox would be his favorite. But that's an unpopular answer here, I think.
This crowd's not going to like that, no.
Moving on.
Yeah, so Lee, question for you about working with deaf and hard of hearing actors. So how was that experience, and did you put certain accommodations or things into place to make sure that it went smoothly? And then, did it go smoothly? How was that process?
Look, I learned a ton. I didn't know the difference between ASL and someone who wore a cochlear implant when we started this. So started with the book, understanding that distinction. And there's different types. I think working with them, what I loved about Lucas and Nikki's character is that it was an attribute for them. It was a part of their makeup. It wasn't an obstacle for them in the story, right? And so along the same lines, it's not an obstacle in making the film because it's just part of who they are. And they wore cochlear implants, so they can hear the direction. Sometimes it was a little hard from farther away, but really there was no issue. But again, it was just a part of who their character was, and it was a beautiful experience. And they're both very mature. And by the way, they are Curtis Pride's son and daughter, who played Lucas and Nikki. So
many hidden connections here in this story. That's pretty amazing. So I'm sure it was important to all of you to make sure that people with hearing loss were represented accurately, because a lot of times in film or on TV, it's just all a stereotype. So for anyone who wants to answer this question, how did you make sure that these were authentic portrayals?
I'll just say that Jodi was like my buffer. Like, it's just for the script, like there wouldn't be a scene that I could write where if there was an inaccuracy, she would definitely correct me on it. And so you were my buffer.
I was the buffer.
And my educator. But yeah, I'll let you handle the rest of the question.
So what was really important, first of all, there was the scene between the brother and the sister where they were doing speech therapy. And the glove was covering Nikki's mouth while she was talking to her brother. And that is a type of speech therapy that my son would go through. So the idea of siblings helping each other was very important. Also, there was the use of the mini mic, the microphone that Rob wore, the character Rob wore during the game. That is actually used, and I mean, even in sports, when they mic up and now you're starting to hear them speaking, that is actually the Roger on, and that is a real deal. I wanted that to be included because when my son used that when he was in elementary school, the teacher would wear the mic so that my son could have the voice streamed into his ears, and so what would happen is the teacher would forget that she was wearing the mic and go to the bathroom and flush and talk to teachers outside. So we wanted to make sure that a mainstream audience would know that there is technology available nowadays for our children who are wearing cochlear implants. For example, they can now swim in water, whereas in the past, they were not able to hear when they were swimming. So the more that we normalize the hearing technology, the less stigma is involved. And for any child who is in this audience, if your class goes to see this movie, you will have a lot less questions about what it is you have on your ears, and we want to make life easier for children with hearing loss. And hopefully this movie will be an opportunity for that to occur. So thank you for the question.
Well, I'd like to give people in the audience an opportunity to ask questions as well. So let's see if there are any questions here.
Do we see a hand up on top?
Is there one in the back?
Can you hand him the mic? Just take the microphone.
How did you think that Jodi's and Rob's dad was like dead? Like, how do you think of that?
Sorry,
I think the question is how did he die? How did the father?
Well, yeah. How did he die? Because there's like no part in the movie like how he died.
Yeah, car accident.
Oh.
Yeah, it's said very quickly and briefly at the beginning when Rob's talking to the camp counselor, and she said it happened so suddenly, and he mentions that it was an accident.
Thank you for the question.
Good question, though.
Thank you.
This is for Brackett and Bennett's dad. I'm on the selection committee, and Brackett sent us a movie last year about Bennett. I was delighted when he sent this because I fell in love with both of them last year. And I was wondering, I actually wrote in my comments, I hope there's a part 2. So I'm wondering, is he planning to do some kind of feature? Because his love for all of this and his love for his brother and the whole story, he's quite a historian. What's next for him? He's a very talented young man.
Yeah. I'm here taking credit for this all, but a lot of this came from my son. This was his baseball discovery that these players had been around, and his real interest in making this. And so, he's a little busy with 5th grade right now, but I think he's always got something in the works. So hopefully we'll see a lot more from him.
I'm going to jump on to that question, if that's okay, and ask for rally caps. What's next?
That seems to be the general question that we get. So
Hopefully distribution. No, at some point we'll find a distributor, hopefully soon, and get it out there and have the world see it and go from there.
I just want to say really fast before we take the next question, we are so grateful to this festival, the accessibility that you provide. This is my favorite festival that I've ever been to. Thank you for making all of these films accessible via interpreter, via captioning. It's amazing being part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
For Benedad, why does your son like Aaron Judge and the Boston Red Sox?
That's a very good question. Why does he like Aaron Judge but likes the Boston Red Sox? It's some internal torment. You know, we made this last year following, we made this at a time when he'd been following Aaron Judge's, record-breaking home run, and he's a fair weather fan. That's the answer.
Well, folks, our audience is being shy. I want to thank you really for being here and bringing this film to us and sharing it with our community. We're going to be screening it here on Wednesday. This has just been added onto our program with the Heschel Middle School, which I think is another great audience to see these films. So we're hoping it's still coming together.
And Tuesday in Long Island.
Tuesday it's screening in Long Island. Did we cover it all? But we really hope that we could help get this film out there as much as possible. It's a real pleasure, and I can tell you I also cry a little at the end, I admit. So it really gets you in all different ways. And of course, the short is also, I think, could be another perfect connection for this film. So thank you all for joining us. Coming up. Coming up, we have in here at 5:30, Loud.